The alarm rang through the bridge of the patrol ship Starward. Captain Una Park looked up from her console and felt her heart skip a beat. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. "Lieutenant Kim, what is happening?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. Taewoo Kim stood at the sensor station. His face had gone pale. He looked at the data on his screen 3 times before he spoke. "Captain, there is a spatial anomaly forming. Sector 7. It is massive." Una walked to his station and looked at the readings herself. The numbers made no sense. Energy levels were climbing higher and higher. Space itself was tearing open like old cloth. "How big?" she asked. "Bigger than anything I have ever seen. Bigger than anything in our records." The Starward was a small ship. It had a crew of 40 people. They were part of the Galactic Coalition patrol fleet. Their job was simple. They watched the borders of Coalition space and reported anything strange. For 3 years, Una had commanded this ship. In all that time, nothing truly strange had ever happened, until now. "Send a message to Coalition Command," Una ordered. "Tell them what we are seeing, and move us closer, slowly." The ship turned and began to fly toward the anomaly. On the main screen, Una could see it now. A swirling hole in space. Purple and blue light poured from it like water from a broken pipe. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Other ships were coming. Una could see them on her sensors. Coalition vessels from 3 different species were racing toward the anomaly. Everyone wanted to know what was happening. Then something came through. It emerged from the light, like a giant waking from sleep. A ship, but not like any ship Una had ever seen. It was huge. Its hull was made of metal that seemed to glow from within. Strange patterns covered its surface. They moved and shifted like living things. "What is that?" Taewoo whispered. Una did not answer. She could not answer. She was staring at the ship's name, painted on its side in old letters. Letters that humans had not used for 200 years. Eternal. Dawn. Her blood went cold. Every human child knew the story of the Eternal Dawn. It was the first great colony ship. 200 years ago, when humanity was young and eager, they had built this vessel. 12,000 brave souls had boarded it. They were going to find a new home among the stars. They were going to prove that humans belonged in space. The ship had launched with hope and celebration. Then, 3 days into its journey, it had vanished. One moment it was there. The next moment it was gone. No signal. No wreckage. Nothing. Search parties had looked for years. They found nothing. The Eternal Dawn became a legend. A ghost story. A warning about the dangers of space. And now it was here. Right in front of Una's eyes. "This is impossible," Taewoo said. His voice was shaking. "That ship has been gone for 200 years. Everyone aboard would be dead." Una shook her head slowly. "Open a channel. Try to contact them." The communication officer worked at her station. Static filled the bridge. Then, suddenly, a voice came through. It spoke in Old Korean. The accent was strange and formal, like something from an ancient recording. "This is the colony ship Eternal Dawn. We request peaceful contact. We mean no harm. We have come home." The bridge was silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Una found her voice. "Eternal Dawn, this is Captain Una Park of the Coalition patrol ship Starward. We receive you. Please, please explain. Where have you been?" There was a pause. Then the voice spoke again. "We have been far away, Captain. Very far. Time moved differently where we were. For you, it has been 200 years. For us, it has been much longer. But we are human. We are your family. And we are finally home." Within hours, the news spread across the galaxy. The coalition called an emergency meeting. Ships from every species came to look at the impossible vessel. Scientists scanned it from a distance. What they found made them afraid. The energy readings from the Eternal Dawn were beyond anything in coalition records. The ship was producing more power than a small star. Its hull was made of materials that did not exist in any database. And there were other readings. Strange readings. Things that broke every known law of physics. Ambassador Ki-Yun-Beek arrived 2 days later. He was an old man now. He had spent his whole life serving humanity in the coalition. He had fought for respect. He had argued for equality. The other species had always looked down on humans. They called them primitive, young, weak. Ki-Yun stood on the observation deck of his diplomatic vessel and stared at the Eternal Dawn. Tears ran down his wrinkled face. "Those are our people," he said softly. "Lost for 200 years. And they found their way back." But not everyone shared his joy. In the halls of Coalition Command, the leaders of 12 species gathered. They watched recordings of the Eternal Dawn. They studied the sensor data. And they grew very, very afraid. "Look at these power readings," said High Arbiter Veltros of the Zealoth. He was a tall creature with silver skin and cold eyes. "This one ship could destroy our entire fleet. Where did humans get this technology?" "They did not get it from us," said another leader. "We have never shared our advanced science with humans. They were too primitive. Then where did it come from?" No one had an answer. The Zealoth were the oldest species in the coalition. They had ruled space for 10,000 years before humans even discovered fire. They had always controlled the balance of power. They had always been the strongest. Now, looking at the Eternal Dawn, Veltros felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. On the bridge of the Starward, Una received new orders. She was to approach the Eternal Dawn. She was to make first contact. She was to find out what had happened to those lost colonists. She took a deep breath and looked at her crew. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes. But they were also curious. They wanted to know the truth. "Take us in," Una ordered. The Starward moved forward. Slowly, carefully, it approached the ancient colony ship. Up close, the Eternal Dawn was even more impressive. Its hull seemed to pulse with inner light. Strange symbols glowed and faded across its surface. A docking bay opened. It looked like a mouth waiting to swallow them whole. Una straightened her uniform. She had so many questions. Where had these people been? What had they seen? What had they become? She did not know it yet, but the answers would change the galaxy forever. The small patrol ship entered the docking bay. The doors closed behind them. And humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed. The docking bay of the Eternal Dawn was like nothing Una had ever seen. The walls were smooth and white. Soft light came from everywhere and nowhere. The air smelled clean and fresh, like a forest after rain. She stepped off the Starward with Ambassador Ki-Yun and Lieutenant Taiwu. 6 guards followed them. Everyone was nervous. Everyone was ready for danger, but there was no danger. There was only a woman waiting for them. She was old. Very old. Her hair was white as snow and her skin was thin like paper. But her eyes were bright and sharp. She stood straight and tall, wearing simple gray clothes. Behind her stood 2 younger people, a man and a woman. They smiled warmly at the visitors. "Welcome," the old woman said. Her voice was gentle but strong. "I am Elder Sujin Han. I have led our people for many years. These are my companions, Chief Engineer Doyin Choi and Historian Hannah Yoon." Ki-Yun stepped forward. His legs were shaking, but his voice was steady. "Elder Han, I am Ambassador Ki-Yun-Beek. I represent Earth and humanity in the coalition. We have so many questions." Sujin smiled. It was a tired smile. The smile of someone who had seen too much and waited too long. Of course you do. Please, come with me. We will tell you everything. They walked through the ship. The corridors were wide and bright. People passed them. Thousands of people. Men, women, children. They all looked human. They all smiled and nodded at the visitors. But there was something different about them. Something in their eyes. A depth that made Yuna uncomfortable. They entered a large room with comfortable chairs and a window that showed the stars outside. Everyone sat down. Sujin began to speak. 200 years ago, by your time, our ship launched from Earth. We were full of hope. We were going to build a new home for humanity. But 3 days into our journey, something happened. A tear in space. We fell through it. She paused. Her old hands gripped the arms of her chair. We found ourselves in another place. Another dimension. Time moved differently there. 1 year in your universe was 10 years in ours. We have been gone for 200 of your years. But for us, it has been over 2,000. Kyun gasped. Taiwu made a small sound of disbelief. Yuna said nothing. She just listened. 2,000 years, Sujin continued. Alone, afraid, fighting to survive. The dimension we fell into was not empty. There were things there. Beings made of darkness and hunger. They wanted to consume us. They wanted to destroy everything we were. Hannah, the young historian, spoke up. Her voice was soft but clear. We lost many people in the first centuries. The beings attacked us again and again. We had to learn. We had to grow. We had to become something new. What did you become? Yuna asked. Do-hyun, the engineer, stood up. He was a young man with kind eyes and quick hands. Let me show you. He raised his right hand. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air around his fingers began to glow. Light gathered in his palm like water filling a cup. It grew brighter and brighter. Then it changed. It became solid. When the light faded, Do-hyun was holding a perfect crystal sphere. He handed it to Yuna. It was cool and smooth. It was completely real. I made this from nothing, Do-hyun said simply. From the energy around us. We call it matter reconstruction. It is one of many things we learned. Kyun stared at the sphere. His hands were trembling. This is impossible. This breaks every law of physics. No, Sujin said gently. It follows different laws. Laws we discovered in the other dimension. Laws that your science has not found yet. Over the next hour, they explained more. They talked about zero-point energy. They talked about dimensional phasing, which allowed them to move through solid objects. They talked about something called thought weaving, which let them connect their minds to the fabric of reality itself. But the most frightening thing was the ship. The Eternal Dawn is alive, Hana explained. During our centuries of survival, we had to merge our technology with our biology. The ship thinks, it feels. It loves us and protects us. Alive? Taiwu said. The ship is alive? Yes. It has been our home and our guardian for 2,000 years. It has fought beside us. It has died for us and been reborn. The Eternal Dawn is not just metal and circuits. It is family. As if to prove her words, a soft hum filled the room. The walls seemed to pulse with warmth. Yuna felt something brush against her mind. It was gentle and curious. It was the ship. It was saying hello. She jumped back in fear. The others did too. Only the colonists remained calm. Do not be afraid, Sujin said. The dawn means no harm. It is simply happy to meet new people. Later, when the visitors returned to their own ship, the Coalition Signs vessels moved closer to scan the Eternal Dawn. What they found made them go silent with fear. The ship's power output was equal to a small star. Its weapons, though inactive, could destroy entire fleets in seconds. Its hull could repair itself from any damage. And the life signs aboard numbered exactly 12,047, the same number that had launched 200 years ago. How is that possible? A zealous scientist demanded. How could the original colonists still be alive after 2,000 years? No one knew. No one wanted to guess. Ambassador Kiyun sat alone in his quarters that night. He read through all the reports. He watched all the recordings. He thought about what he had seen and heard. These were his people. Human beings. Lost and alone for 20 centuries. They had faced monsters from another dimension. They had fought wars that made coalition conflicts look like children playing. They had suffered and died and been reborn. And they had won. They had developed technology that made the coalition look primitive. They had powers that seemed like magic. They had turned their ship into a living being that could think and feel. All because they refused to give up. All because they were human. Kiyun wept. He wept with pride and sorrow and fear. He knew what was coming. He knew how the coalition would react to this news. The other species had always looked down on humans. They had called them weak and young and primitive. They had kept them out of important decisions. They had treated them like children who needed guidance. Now those children had come home. And they were stronger than anyone could have imagined. The balance of power in the galaxy had just changed forever. And Kiyun was not sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing. On the eternal dawn, Elder Sujin stood at a window and looked at the stars. She had been born on this ship. She had lived her entire life in the other dimension. She had never seen these stars before, but she had dreamed of them. Every night for 2,000 years, she had dreamed of coming home. "We made it," she whispered. "After everything, we finally made it." Beside her, young Do-yoon nodded. "But will they accept us? Will they welcome us? Or will they fear us?" Sujin sighed. "I do not know. But we did not survive 20 centuries just to give up now. Whatever comes next, we will face it together, as we always have." The eternal dawn hummed softly around them. It was happy. It was home, but in the shadows of Coalition Command, darker plans were already being made. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within days, everyone knew about the eternal dawn. Every planet, every station, every ship talked about the impossible return. On Earth, people celebrated. They danced in the streets and cried with joy. Their lost children had come home. After 200 years of sorrow, hope had returned. But in the halls of Coalition Command, there was no celebration. There was only fear. High Arbiter Veltros stood before the Coalition Council. The leaders of 11 alien species watched him on giant screens. Their faces showed the same emotion: worry. Deep, terrible worry. "We cannot ignore this threat," Veltros said. His silver skin seemed darker today. His voice was hard as stone. "This human ship has power beyond anything we possess. If humans gain access to this technology, they will become unstoppable." "Perhaps we should negotiate," suggested a leader from the Moran species. They were small, gentle creatures who preferred peace. "The humans say they want to share their knowledge." "Share?" Veltros laughed bitterly. "Look at their history. Humans are violent. They war with each other constantly. If we give them time, they will use this power against us all." "We do not know that," the Moran leader protested. "I know enough." Veltros turned to address all the screens. "For 10,000 years, my people have kept the peace. We have maintained balance. We have controlled the flow of technology so that no one species becomes too powerful. This is how we have survived." He paused and let his words sink in. Now that balance is broken. One human ship carries more power than all our fleets combined. We must act. We must act now, before it is too late. The debate continued for hours. Some leaders agreed with Veltros. Others were unsure. A few spoke in favor of peace. But in the end, fear won. Fear always won. The council voted. They would assemble a war fleet. They would demand the Eternal Dawn surrender its technology. If the humans refused, they would take it by force. On Earth, Director Minji Seo received the secret report. She was the head of Earth's intelligence division. She had spies everywhere. She knew things that most people never learned. Now she knew that the coalition planned to attack. She sat in her dark office and stared at the report. Her heart was heavy with impossible choices. Earth's government wanted the Eternal Dawn's technology. They saw it as a chance for humanity to rise, to become equals with the older species. Maybe even more than equals, but Minji knew better. She knew that taking that path would mean war. A war that humanity might win, but at terrible cost. She thought of her daughter, her grandson, all the children of Earth who knew nothing of politics and power. They just wanted to live. They just wanted peace. What was the right thing to do? While leaders argued and spies worried, a young man named Sunwoo Jiang made a different choice. He was a navigator on the Eternal Dawn. He had been born in the other dimension. He had spent his entire life flying through darkness, fighting monsters, dreaming of a home he had never seen. Now that home was right in front of him. "I want to go," he told Elder Sujin. "I want to see Earth. I want to touch the grass and smell the air and feel the sun on my face." Sujin looked at him with gentle eyes. "It could be dangerous. The coalition is afraid of us. They might not welcome you. I do not care." Sunwoo's voice was firm. "I have fought beings made of pure darkness. I have survived things that would drive most people mad. I am not afraid of politicians." Sujin smiled sadly. "Very well. Take a shuttle. Be careful. Be careful, and come back safely." Sunwoo flew to Earth alone. He landed his small ship in a field outside Seoul. The capital city gleamed in the distance, full of lights and life. He stepped out of the shuttle. His feet touched grass for the first time. Real grass. Soft and green and alive. He fell to his knees and wept. For his whole life, he had only known metal floors and artificial light. He had breathed recycled air and eaten food made by machines. The other dimension had been dark and cold and filled with enemies. But this was everything his ancestors had dreamed of when they built the Eternal Dawn. This was home. He lay on his back and looked at the sky. Stars twinkled above him. Somewhere up there, his ship waited. His family waited. But right now, in this moment, he was just a young man lying in the grass, feeling the wind on his face. "Beautiful," he whispered. "So beautiful." He stayed there for hours. People from nearby villages came to look at the strange shuttle. They recognized it as coming from the Eternal Dawn. Word spread quickly. Soon, hundreds of people gathered around him. They did not attack. They did not run away. They just stood there, looking at this young man who had come from the stars. An old woman pushed through the crowd. She walked slowly, using a cane for support. Her face was wrinkled with age and wisdom. "Are you from the lost ship?" she asked. Sunwoo stood up and bowed respectfully. "Yes, grandmother." "I am." The old woman smiled. Tears ran down her cheeks. "My great-grandmother was supposed to be on that ship. She got sick at the last moment and could not go. She spent her whole life wondering what happened to her friends. Now I know." She reached out and touched Sunwoo's face. Her hand was warm and gentle. "Welcome home, child," she said. "Welcome home." The crowd began to cheer. People rushed forward to shake Sunwoo's hand, to hug him, to welcome him. They did not care about politics or power. They only saw what he was. A lost child of humanity, finally returned. Sunwoo laughed and cried at the same time. This was what they had fought for. This was what they had survived for. This moment. This connection. This love. But far above them, in the darkness of space, the Coalition war fleet was gathering. 500 ships from 6 different species. The largest military force assembled in a century. High Arbiter Veltros stood on the bridge of his flagship. He looked at the distant blue dot that was Earth. He thought about the eternal dawn and its impossible technology. He thought about the future of the galaxy. Humanity has been a minor species for too long, he said to his officers. They were content with their small place. They accepted their weakness. But now everything has changed. If we do not stop them, they will rise above us all. Perhaps that is not such a bad thing, one officer dared to say. Veltros turned cold eyes on him. The strong rule. The weak serve. That is the way of the universe. If humans become strong, then we become weak. I will not allow that. I cannot allow that. He gave the order. The fleet began to move. 500 warships, armed with the best weapons the Coalition had ever made. They flew toward Earth. They flew toward the eternal dawn. They flew toward a confrontation that would change the galaxy forever. On the eternal dawn, Elder Sujin received word of the approaching fleet. She closed her eyes and sighed. So, she said quietly, they choose war. Fleet Commander Bora Shin stood beside her. Bora was young but had fought in more battles than anyone could count. Her eyes were hard and her hands were steady. We can destroy them, Bora said. Easily. One thought, and their fleet becomes dust. I know. Sujin opened her eyes. But that is not who we are. That is not who we want to be. Then what do we do? Sujin smiled. It was a strange smile. Sad and wise and somehow hopeful. We show them, she said. We show them what true strength really means. The Coalition war fleet arrived at Earth 3 days later. 500 ships spread across the darkness of space like a cloud of angry insects. Their weapons were armed. Their shields were raised. They were ready for war. Admiral Jae-won-ru watched them come. He stood on the bridge of his ship, the Earth's pride. It was the largest vessel humanity had ever built. Behind him waited 47 more ships. The entire Earth Defense Force. 48 ships against 500. We cannot win this fight, his second officer said quietly. I know, Jae-won replied. But we will not stand aside. We will not abandon our own people. He gave the order. The Earth fleet moved into position between the Coalition Armada and the Eternal Dawn. It was a foolish thing to do. It was like a mouse standing against a pack of wolves. But it was the right thing to do. High Arbiter Veltros watched the human ships form their line. He laughed. Brave, he said. Stupid, but brave. Open a channel. His face appeared on every screen across both fleets. His silver skin glowed with cold authority. Humans of Earth, he announced. This is High Arbiter Veltros of the Galactic Coalition. We are here for the ship called Eternal Dawn. Its technology is too dangerous to remain in human hands. You will surrender the ship immediately. If you refuse, we will take it by force. Admiral Jae-won responded. His voice was calm but firm. High Arbiter, the Eternal Dawn carries 12,000 human citizens. They are our people. We will not hand them over to anyone. Then you will die with them. The Coalition fleet powered up its weapons. Energy beams charged. Missiles locked onto targets. The moment of battle had come, but then another voice joined the conversation. It was soft and clear. It belonged to Counselor Yoon Ji-moon, one of the leaders of the Eternal Dawn. "Hi, Arbiter Veltros," she said. "Please listen to me." Her face appeared on the screens. She was a middle-aged woman with gentle eyes and a peaceful smile. She did not look frightened. She did not look angry. She just looked sad. "We have spent 2,000 years fighting," Yunji continued. "In the other dimension, we faced enemies that would make your worst nightmares seem like pleasant dreams. Beings made of darkness and hunger. Creatures that ate stars and destroyed galaxies. We fought them. We bled against them. We died against them, again and again." She paused. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Veltros, even through the millions of kilometers of space between them. "We won. We survived. We developed power beyond anything you can imagine. But that power taught us something important. Violence is easy. Destruction is simple. Any fool can break things. True strength is something else. True strength is knowing you can destroy everything and choosing not to." Veltros sneered. "Pretty words. But words will not stop my weapons." "No," Yunji agreed. "They will not. So let me show you instead." On the Eternal Dawn, Fleet Commander Bora Shin closed her eyes. She reached out with her mind and connected to the ship. She felt its vast intelligence wrap around her like a warm blanket. She felt its love and its power and its patience. "Ready?" Sujin asked. "Ready," Bora replied. Veltros gave the order to fire. 500 ships unleashed their weapons at once. Energy beams, plasma cannons, nuclear missiles, gravity bombs. Everything they had, all firing at the Eternal Dawn and the small human fleet protecting it. The attack was massive. It was overwhelming. It should have destroyed everything in its path, but nothing happened. The weapons passed through empty space. The Eternal Dawn was simply not there anymore. One moment it existed. The next moment it had become like a ghost. Beams went through it. Missiles flew past it. Not a single shot hit anything. "What?" Veltros stared at his screens in disbelief. "What is happening?" "Dimensional phasing," Bora said calmly. Her voice echoed through every coalition ship. "We can step outside your reality whenever we choose. Your weapons cannot touch us." They never could. The Eternal Dawn became solid again. It hung in space, completely undamaged. The coalition fleet had just used enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ship did not have a single scratch. "Fire again!" Veltros screamed. They fired again. And again. And again. Each time, the Eternal Dawn simply faded from existence until the attack passed. Each time, it returned without a mark. Finally, Veltros stopped the attack. His fleet had used half its ammunition. His ship's power cores were running low. And the enemy had not suffered any damage at all. "Do you understand now?" Yunji asked gently. "We could have destroyed your fleet the moment it arrived." One thought from Commander Bora, and all your ships would be dust. But we do not want that. We never wanted that. Veltros said nothing. His silver face had gone pale. "Let me show you something else," Bora said. She reached out again. This time, she did not phase the Eternal Dawn. Instead, she reached into every coalition ship at once. She touched their systems with her mind, gently, carefully, like a mother putting a child to sleep. One by one, the coalition ships went dark. Their engines stopped. Their weapons powered down. Their shields failed. They did not explode. They did not break. They simply stopped working. Life support remained on. Air kept flowing. Lights stayed lit, but nothing else functioned. 500 warships, the mightiest fleet in the galaxy, reduced to floating metal boxes in a matter of seconds. "We have been fighting gods for 2,000 years, Bora said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every ear. "You are not gods. You are children. and we do not harm children. On his darkened bridge, Veltros sank into his command chair. His officers stood around him, frozen in shock. Their instruments were dead. Their weapons were useless. They could not even call for help. How? He whispered. How is this possible? Survival, Yunji answered. When you spend 20 centuries fighting for your existence, you learn things. You grow. You evolve. We had no choice but to become stronger. So we did. She let that sink in for a moment. But strength is not the same as cruelty. Power is not the same as violence. We could rule this galaxy if we wanted to. We could destroy the coalition and make humanity the masters of everything. But that is not who we are. That is not what we want. What do you want? Veltros asked. His voice was small now, defeated. We want to come home. We want to share what we have learned. We want to help everyone, not just humans. For 2,000 years, we dreamed of the stars. We dreamed of peace. We dreamed of family. That is all we have ever wanted. Silence filled the space between the fleets. Then Admiral J1 spoke. High Arbiter, perhaps it is time to talk instead of fight. Veltros closed his eyes. He had lived for 300 years. He had commanded armies and conquered planets. He had believed himself to be the most powerful being in the galaxy. Now he knew the truth. He was nothing compared to these humans. These lost children who had returned with the power of gods, and they were offering peace. Very well, he said finally. We will talk. Bora smiled. She reached out with her mind one more time. Gently, softly, she woke up the coalition ships. Systems came back online. Engines hummed to life. Weapons recharged, though no one dared to use them. Thank you, Yunji said. That is all we ever wanted. A chance to talk. A chance to explain. A chance to be family again. The war that had seemed so certain moments ago faded away like morning mist. In its place, something new began. Something strange and frightening and wonderful. On the eternal dawn, Elder Shujin watched through the window. Tears rolled down her ancient face. 2,000 years, she whispered. We waited 2,000 years for this moment. Beside her, young Sunwoo nodded. He thought of the grass he had touched, the sky he had seen, the old woman who had welcomed him home. It was worth it, he said. Every moment of suffering, every battle, every loss. It was all worth it. Sujin reached out and took his hand. Yes, she agreed. It was. 1 year had passed since the confrontation in space. The galaxy had changed more in those 12 months than it had in the previous 1,000 years. The coalition war fleet returned home without firing another shot. High Arbiter Veltros resigned from his position. He said he was tired. He said he needed time to think. But everyone knew the truth. He had looked into the face of true power, and it had broken something inside him. New leaders rose to take his place. Younger leaders. Leaders who understood that the old ways were finished. The galaxy could not go back to what it was before. Humanity was no longer a minor species to be controlled and dismissed. Everything was different now. On Earth, celebrations continued for months. People gathered in cities around the world to welcome the colonists home. Parades filled the streets. Songs were written. Statues were built. The Eternal Dawn became the most famous ship in human history. President Yunwu Kang stood before the United Earth Assembly. He was a simple man. Before becoming president, he had been a teacher. He still spoke like one. Clear words. Simple ideas. Honest feelings. My fellow humans, he said. Today we witness something that has never happened before. Our lost family has returned. They have been gone for 200 years by our count. But for them, It has been over 2,000 years of struggle and suffering. He paused and looked at the faces before him. Politicians, scientists, soldiers, citizens. All of them watching. All of them listening. They could have come back as conquerors. They have the power to rule the entire galaxy. No one could stop them. But instead, they came back as family. They came back with love in their hearts and hope in their eyes. They came back to share what they have learned, to help us grow, to make us better. He smiled. It was a warm smile, a teacher's smile. Let us be worthy of that gift. Let us welcome them with open arms. Let us show the galaxy what humanity truly is. Not a species of war and violence, but a species of love and resilience. A species that never gives up. A species that always finds its way home. The assembly rose to its feet. Applause filled the great hall. Outside, millions of people watched on screens and cheered. Elder Sujin Han watched the speech from a hospital room. She was dying. After 2,000 years of life, her body had finally decided it was time to rest. The technology that had kept her alive for so long could not help her anymore. She did not want it to. I have lived long enough, she told the doctors. I have seen my people come home. That is enough. That is everything. Her friends gathered around her bed. Do-hyun, the young engineer. Hana, the historian. Bora, the fleet commander. Yoonji, the counselor. And many others. The children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the original colonists. Do not be sad, Sujin said. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were bright. I am not dying. I am just moving on. The same way our ship moved between dimensions. Death is just another journey. She reached out and took Hana's hand. Promise me something, Sujin said. Promise me you will write our story. All of it. The suffering and the triumph. The darkness and the light. Let the galaxy know what we went through. Let them understand what humanity can become when we refuse to give up. Hana nodded, tears streaming down her face. I promise. Sujin smiled. She closed her eyes. And gently, peacefully, she passed away. The galaxy mourned her death. Every species, even those who had once feared humans, lowered their flags in respect. Elder Sujin Han became a legend. The woman who led her people through 2,000 years of darkness. The woman who brought them home. But life continued. It always does. The colonists of the Eternal Dawn spread across Earth and beyond. They shared their technology freely. Zero-point energy ended the fuel crisis forever. Matter reconstruction solved hunger and poverty. Medical advances extended human life by centuries. They also shared their knowledge with the coalition. Some species accepted the gifts gratefully. Others were suspicious at first. But slowly, over time, even the most fearful aliens began to trust the humans. How could they not? The colonists gave everything and asked for nothing in return. Fleet, Commander Bora chose to stay aboard the Eternal Dawn. So did many others. The void had been their home for 2,000 years. They were not ready to give it up. There are other dimensions out there, Bora told President Kang. Other realities. Other wonders. We want to explore them. We want to see what else the universe has hidden. Will you come back? The president asked Dodd. Bora smiled. Always. Earth is our heart. No matter how far we go, we will always come back. The Eternal Dawn left Earth on a spring morning. It rose through the clouds and disappeared into the stars. People watched it go with tears in their eyes. But they were not sad. They knew the ship would return. It always did. On the ground, young Nari Park stood with her grandmother. Nari had been born on the Eternal Dawn in the other dimension. She was 7 years old. She had spent her whole short life surrounded by metal walls and recycled air. Now she stood on Earth for the first time. The grass was soft under her feet. The wind was cool on her face. The sun was warm and bright, like nothing she had ever felt before. She looked up at the blue sky and laughed with pure joy. "Is this real?" she asked her grandmother. "Is this really real?" Her grandmother was an old woman named Ga. She had been born on the ship too, long ago. She had fought in the dimensional wars. She had lost friends and family. She had survived things that would break most people, but now she was here, on Earth, watching her granddaughter touch grass for the first time. "Yes, little one," Jihei said. Her voice was thick with emotion. "This is real. This is home." Nari knelt down and touched the grass. She picked a flower and held it to her nose. She smelled it, and her eyes went wide with wonder. "It smells like magic," she whispered. Jihei laughed. It was a good laugh. The kind of laugh that comes from deep happiness. "That is not magic," she said. "That is just Earth. That is just home." Far above them, the eternal dawn hung in space one last time. Its hull glowed with inner light. Its engines hummed with ancient power. The ship was alive, and it was happy that it had spent 2,000 years protecting its people, fighting for them, dying for them, and being reborn. It had traveled through dimensions of darkness and horror. It had faced enemies that would destroy universes. But now it was home. Through its sensors, the ship watched little Nari playing in the grass below. It watched Ga wiping tears from her eyes. It watched millions of humans living and loving and dreaming. This was what it had fought for. This was what it had survived for. The eternal dawn turned toward the stars. New adventures waited. New dimensions called. New mysteries begged to be solved. But no matter where it went, no matter what it faced, the ship would always remember this moment. The moment when lost children finally came home. The moment when 2,000 years of suffering turned into endless hope. The engines fired. The ship began to move. Slowly at first, then faster and faster. On the ground, Nari looked up and waved. "Goodbye," she shouted. "Come back soon." The ship heard her. It always heard its people. And in its own way, it waved back. Then it was gone. Vanished into the stars. Off to explore wonders that no one had ever seen. But it would return. It always returned. Because that is what family does. And humanity, for all its flaws and struggles and pain, had always been a family. A family that never gave up. A family that always found its way home. No matter how long it took. No matter how far they had to go. Home was always waiting. And that made all the difference.